Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they refuse to face the truth about their lives. Human beings are experts at creating distractions, excuses, and comfortable illusions just to avoid confronting what they already know deep inside. A man can spend years pretending he is happy in a job that slowly destroys his spirit. A woman can stay surrounded by people who drain her energy while convincing herself loyalty matters more than peace. Someone can keep delaying their dreams, telling themselves the right time will come someday, while every year quietly slips away. The dangerous part is not the struggle itself. The dangerous part is becoming comfortable living a life that no longer feels real. Studies in behavioral psychology show that self-awareness is one of the strongest predictors of long-term personal growth and leadership effectiveness. People who regularly reflect on their behaviors, emotions, and decisions make stronger life choices and adapt faster during difficult transitions. Yet most individuals avoid self-reflection because truth is uncomfortable. Truth forces responsibility. The moment you admit your habits are destroying your future, you can no longer blame luck. The moment you admit fear is controlling your decisions, excuses lose their power. Truth removes the mask, and many people spend their entire lives protecting a false version of themselves because honesty demands change. The first step to reinventing yourself is not motivation, it is brutal honesty. You must become willing to sit alone with your thoughts and ask difficult questions. Are you truly living according to your values, or are you performing for approval? Are your daily habits building the future you dream about, or are they quietly destroying it? Are you growing, or are you simply repeating the same patterns with different excuses? These questions are uncomfortable because they expose the gap between who you are and who you could become. But that gap is where transformation begins. Many people think confidence comes before action. In reality, confidence often comes after truth. When you stop pretending, you stop wasting energy maintaining an image. You become lighter, clearer, stronger. A person who accepts reality gains power because they finally see what needs to change. Denial creates weakness. Awareness creates direction. Every great transformation in history started with someone refusing to ignore reality any longer. Leaders, athletes, entrepreneurs, and visionaries all reached a moment where they stopped lying to themselves about their limitations, distractions, and fears. There is also something powerful about accepting responsibility without self-pity. The strongest people are not those with perfect lives. They are the ones willing to confront imperfect truths without running away. They understand that growth requires discomfort. If your current habits are weak, admit it. If your mindset has become negative, admit it. If fear has kept you stuck, admit it. Truth is painful for a moment, but denial becomes painful for a lifetime. Your future changes the moment honesty becomes stronger than comfort, because once you clearly see the truth, staying the same becomes impossible. You begin to recognize that every decision either moves you closer to the person you want to become or further away from your potential. Small lies create stagnant lives. Honest awareness creates momentum. The person capable of reinventing themselves is not necessarily the smartest or the most talented. It is the person brave enough to face reality without excuses and disciplined enough to act on what they discover. The world rewards authenticity because authenticity creates clarity. People trust individuals who are real with themselves. Real growth happens when you stop performing and start building. Not for applause, not for validation, but because you finally understand that your life cannot transform until your truth becomes undeniable. The environment around you silently shapes the person you become. Every room you enter, every conversation you tolerate, every habit you repeat, and every person you spend time with is influencing your mindset far more than most people realize. Human behavior is deeply connected to surroundings. Research in neuroscience and behavioral psychology consistently shows that people unconsciously adapt to the standards, emotions, and routines of the environments they remain in the longest. This means your future is not only created by your goals, it is also created by what constantly surrounds you every single day. A person who spends years in negative environments often begins to think negatively without noticing. Energy is contagious. If you are constantly surrounded by people who complain, avoid responsibility, gossip, and settle for less, eventually your own standards begin to drop. At first you resist it, then you tolerate it. Eventually you become part of it. This is why so many people feel stuck even when they have talent. Their environment keeps pulling them back toward comfort, distraction, and mediocrity. The truth is painful but simple. Growth becomes difficult when your surroundings reward weakness more than discipline. Studies on social influence reveal that individuals naturally mirror the behaviors and emotional patterns of the people closest to them. Ambition rises in ambitious circles, laziness spreads in passive environments, focus becomes stronger around disciplined people. Even physical health, financial habits, and emotional resilience are heavily influenced by social surroundings. This explains why changing your life sometimes requires changing your environment before changing anything else. A new mindset struggles to survive inside old conditions that constantly reinforce old behaviors. Your identity is built through repetition. If your daily environment encourages distraction, your focus weakens. If your environment encourages growth, learning, and accountability, your discipline strengthens. Think about how different people behave in different rooms. A person can feel inspired in one environment and completely drained in another. That is not weakness, that is human psychology. The spaces around you either expand your potential or slowly suffocate it. Many people wait for motivation while continuing to stay in environments that destroy their confidence. They listen to negativity every day and wonder why they feel emotionally exhausted. They spend time with people who mock ambition and wonder why they stop dreaming. They consume toxic content for hours and wonder why their minds feel restless. Your mind absorbs what it repeatedly experiences. If you feed it chaos, fear, and distraction, eventually your identity begins to reflect those patterns. But if you surround yourself with clarity, discipline, learning, and purpose, you slowly begin transforming into someone stronger. Sometimes the hardest part of growth is realizing certain people cannot come with you, not because they are bad, but because they are committed to a version of life you no longer want. Reinvention often requires distance from environments that keep you emotionally trapped in your past identity. You cannot constantly surround yourself with excuses and expect to develop discipline. You cannot stay in spaces that reward comfort and expect to build greatness. Growth demands alignment between your goals and your surroundings. Strong environments also create emotional stability. When your routines are intentional, your focus becomes sharper. When your physical space is organized, your mind often feels calmer. When you protect your attention from constant noise, your thinking becomes clearer. Small environmental shifts create massive internal changes over time. One powerful conversation can reshape your perspective. One disciplined friendship can raise your standards. One focused routine can completely transform your confidence. People often underestimate how much courage it takes to leave environments that no longer serve them. Familiarity feels safe even when it is damaging, but staying in the wrong environment slowly weakens your belief in what is possible. The people who reinvent themselves understand something important. Your future identity cannot grow in conditions designed to maintain your past. Real transformation begins when your surroundings start reflecting the person you are trying to become rather than the person you used to be. Discipline is the bridge between the person you are today and the person you are capable of becoming. Most people wait for motivation before they take action, but motivation is unreliable. It changes with emotions, circumstances, and comfort. Discipline is different. Discipline continues when excitement disappears. It continues when nobody is watching, when progress feels slow, and when results are invisible. That is why disciplined people eventually separate themselves from those who only act when they feel inspired. Research in behavioral science shows that repeated actions slowly rewire the brain through a process called neuroplasticity. Every habit strengthens specific mental pathways. This means the actions you repeat daily eventually shape your identity. If you repeatedly avoid discomfort, your mind becomes trained to seek convenience. If you repeatedly face difficult tasks with consistency, your mind becomes stronger under pressure. Discipline is not just about productivity, it is the process of teaching your brain who you are becoming. Most people misunderstand discipline because they think it is punishment. In reality, discipline is self-respect in action. Waking up early to work on your goals when nobody forces you to do it is a sign of self-respect. Protecting your focus instead of wasting hours on distractions is self-respect. Controlling your emotions during stressful moments is self-respect. Discipline is the ability to choose long-term growth over temporary comfort again and again until your behaviors begin shaping a new identity. There is a reason disciplined people often appear calmer and more confident. Their confidence is not built on motivation or external validation. It is built on evidence. Every time they keep a promise to themselves, they strengthen trust within their own mind. Over time, this internal trust becomes powerful. When challenges appear, disciplined individuals do not panic easily because they already know they can rely on themselves during difficult moments. Self-belief grows through action, not wishful thinking. Many people dream about changing their lives, but they refuse to change their routines. That is impossible. Your future is hidden inside your daily habits. A person who consistently trains their body becomes physically stronger. A person who consistently learns becomes mentally sharper. A person who consistently practices emotional control becomes more resilient under pressure. Transformation is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It often feels repetitive, slow, and unnoticed. But repetition is exactly what creates mastery. Studies on high performers across sports, business, and leadership consistently reveal that consistency matters more than intensity. Small, disciplined actions repeated daily outperform occasional bursts of motivation. One focused hour every day creates more growth than random moments of extreme effort followed by long periods of distraction. Discipline compounds quietly. At first, the results are almost invisible. Then one day, people suddenly call you talented, strong, or successful without realizing they are witnessing the result of years of consistent behavior. Discipline also changes your relationship with pain. Undisciplined people see discomfort as something to avoid. Disciplined people begin seeing discomfort as evidence of growth. The athlete understands soreness builds strength. The entrepreneur understands rejection builds resilience. The focused individual understands sacrifice creates freedom. This mindset shift is powerful because it removes emotional dependence from action. Instead of asking, "Do I feel like doing this today?" disciplined people ask, "Does this move me closer to the life I want?" The modern world constantly encourages distraction and instant gratification. Notifications, entertainment, and endless stimulation train people to seek immediate comfort instead of meaningful progress. Discipline becomes rare in environments built around convenience. That is why disciplined individuals often achieve extraordinary results. They develop the ability to stay focused in a world designed to steal attention. They understand that every moment of controlled focus is building a stronger version of themselves. Reinvention does not happen through one motivational speech, one lucky opportunity, or one emotional breakthrough. It happens through disciplined repetition. Every controlled decision slowly reshapes identity. Every difficult action strengthens character. Every moment of consistency creates momentum. Eventually, the habits that once felt difficult become part of who you are. The old version of you disappears not because of one dramatic moment, but because discipline quietly created someone entirely different. One of the hardest things a person will ever do is let go of an old identity. Human beings become emotionally attached to familiar versions of themselves, even when those versions create pain, limitation, or stagnation. People hold on to old habits, old mindsets, and old stories because familiarity feels safe. The mind would rather remain comfortable in a known struggle than risk uncertainty through change. This is why so many individuals stay trapped in cycles they secretly want to escape. They want a new life while still protecting the identity that created the old one. Psychological studies on identity and behavior show that people naturally act in ways that reinforce their self-image. If someone believes they are lazy, unworthy, weak, or incapable, their actions often unconsciously align with those beliefs. Even when opportunities appear, they sabotage progress because growth feels unfamiliar. The brain seeks consistency between identity and behavior. This means real transformation is not only about changing actions, it is about releasing the internal story you continue telling yourself about who you are. Many people say they want reinvention, but deep inside they still define themselves by past failures. Someone who was rejected begins believing they are unlovable. Someone who failed financially begins believing they are incapable of success. Someone who struggled emotionally begins identifying with pain instead of healing. Over time, the past stops being a memory and becomes an identity. This is dangerous because once pain becomes part of your identity, letting go of it feels like losing a part of yourself. The truth is, your past may explain you, but it does not define your future. Every strong transformation requires separation from outdated versions of yourself. You cannot build confidence while constantly replaying old insecurities. You cannot become disciplined while emotionally attached to habits that keep you distracted. You cannot create peace while continuing to feed old emotional wounds every day. Growth demands release, not because the past never mattered, but because carrying it forever prevents movement. Research on emotional resilience shows that people who successfully reinvent themselves often develop the ability to reinterpret past experiences rather than remain emotionally trapped inside them. They stop viewing failure as proof of weakness and begin seeing it as part of development. This mental shift changes everything. The moment you stop identifying with your lowest moments, you reclaim power over your future. Pain becomes a lesson instead of a prison. Letting go also requires courage because not everyone will understand your transformation. Some people become uncomfortable when you change because your growth challenges the version of you they became familiar with. They may remind you of your mistakes, criticize your new direction, or expect you to stay the same. This is common because people often prefer predictable versions of others. Reinvention disrupts expectations. But growth was never meant to make everyone comfortable. It was meant to make you stronger. There is also grief involved in personal transformation. People rarely talk about this part. Sometimes you must grieve the years you wasted, the opportunities you missed, or the person you could have been if fear had not controlled you for so long. But grieving is healthier than remaining emotionally frozen. Acknowledging loss allows movement. Denial keeps people stuck in emotional repetition. The strongest individuals are not those who pretend the past never hurt them. They are the ones who accept it, learn from it, and continue moving forward anyway. Every new chapter in life requires the death of an old mindset. A person cannot evolve while constantly returning to behaviors that belong to a previous version of themselves. Reinvention requires emotional detachment from identities built around fear, insecurity, approval, or limitation. This does not happen overnight. It happens decision by decision. Every time you choose discipline over excuses, you weaken the old identity. Every time you speak differently to yourself, you create a new mental pattern. Every time you act with courage despite fear, you move further away from the person you used to be. The most powerful transformations happen quietly. At some point, you stop needing to prove you have changed because your actions begin speaking for you. The old habits lose control, the old fears lose influence, the old identity slowly fades because you no longer feed it with your attention, your choices, or your beliefs, and eventually you realize that becoming a new person was never about pretending to be someone else. It was about finally releasing everything that no longer aligned with who you were capable of becoming. Pain changes people. The question is whether it changes them into someone stronger or someone permanently broken by fear. Every human being experiences disappointment, rejection, failure, loss, loneliness, or betrayal at some point in life. Pain is unavoidable. What separates powerful people from defeated people is not the absence of suffering. It is the meaning they attach to it. Some allow pain to destroy their confidence and identity. Others use pain as fuel for transformation. Psychological research on post-traumatic growth shows that many individuals develop greater emotional strength, resilience, and purpose after surviving difficult experiences. Hardship forces the mind to adapt. People often discover levels of discipline, courage, and clarity they never knew existed until life pushed them into uncomfortable situations. Struggle has a unique way of exposing hidden strength because comfort rarely demands growth. Easy lives do not build resilience. Adversity does. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain completely. But avoiding pain also means avoiding transformation. The athlete experiences pain while training the body beyond its limits. The entrepreneur experiences pain through rejection and uncertainty. The person healing emotionally experiences pain while confronting old wounds instead of hiding from them. Growth and discomfort are deeply connected. Every major breakthrough usually begins with a season of pressure, confusion, or emotional struggle. Pain also strips away illusions. Difficult moments reveal who people truly are. They expose weak habits, emotional dependence, unhealthy relationships, and false priorities. Someone may think they are mentally strong until life becomes difficult. Someone may believe certain people truly care until hardship reveals who disappears when circumstances change. Pain brings clarity because struggle removes distraction. It forces people to see reality without comfort protecting them from truth. Neuroscience studies show that human beings remember emotionally intense experiences more deeply than ordinary moments. This means painful experiences often leave stronger mental imprints than positive ones. But this can become either destructive or empowering, depending on interpretation. If someone constantly replays pain as evidence of weakness, the brain reinforces fear and helplessness. But if pain is reframed as proof of survival and adaptation, the brain begins building resilience instead. The same experience can either imprison someone mentally or awaken strength within them. Many of the strongest people in the world were shaped by painful seasons they never expected. Rejection taught them independence. Failure taught them discipline. Loneliness taught them self-awareness. Betrayal taught them emotional boundaries. Pain forced them to stop depending on comfort and start depending on inner strength. The experiences they once hated eventually became the foundation of their growth. This is why emotionally strong people often carry quiet confidence. They know what it means to survive difficult seasons without losing themselves. There is also something powerful about realizing pain can sharpen purpose. Some people waste years chasing distractions because life has never forced them to think deeply. Struggle changes that. Pain often pushes people to ask bigger questions about meaning, identity, and direction. It forces reflection, it forces awareness, it creates emotional depth. Many people discover their true values only after losing what they thought mattered most. At the same time, pain can become dangerous when people build their identity around it. Suffering should teach you, not permanently define you. Some individuals become emotionally attached to victimhood because pain becomes familiar. They repeat the same stories, relive the same emotions, and unconsciously protect the wounds they should be healing from. True strength comes from learning through pain without becoming consumed by it. The goal is not to pretend suffering never happened. The goal is to carry wisdom forward without carrying emotional chains forever. Every painful season contains a decision. You can allow struggle to make you bitter, angry, and emotionally closed, or you can allow it to build patience, wisdom, and resilience. The same fire that melts weak material also strengthens steel. Human beings are no different. Pressure reveals character. Hardship reveals mindset. Difficult moments reveal emotional endurance. Over time, the pain that once felt unbearable often becomes the very thing that reshapes identity. You become calmer because chaos taught you emotional control. You become wiser because mistakes forced reflection. You become stronger because survival demanded growth. Eventually, you realize that your greatest struggles were not only moments of suffering, they were moments of transformation, preparing you for a version of yourself that comfort alone could never create. Fear has stopped more dreams than failure ever could. Most people are not held back by lack of talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They are held back by hesitation. Fear convinces people to stay inside familiar routines, even when those routines are slowly destroying their potential. It whispers that failure will be unbearable, that rejection will be humiliating, that change is dangerous. Over time, many individuals begin organizing their entire lives around avoiding discomfort instead of pursuing growth. That is how fear quietly steals futures. Psychologists have long studied the brain's survival system and discovered that fear activates protective responses designed to keep human beings safe from danger. The problem is that the brain often treats emotional risks the same way it treats physical threats. Public speaking, starting a business, changing careers, ending unhealthy relationships, or pursuing ambitious goals can trigger the same internal alarm system as real danger. The heart races, doubt appears, and the mind searches for reasons to stay safe. This explains why people often sabotage opportunities that could completely change their lives. Fear convinces them survival matters more than possibility. The tragedy is not fear itself. Fear is natural. The tragedy happens when fear becomes the decision maker. Every meaningful transformation in life requires stepping into uncertainty before confidence fully exists. The athlete enters competition despite fear of losing. The entrepreneur takes risks despite fear of failure. The person rebuilding their life moves forward despite fear of judgment. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement despite it. Studies on high achievement consistently show that people who succeed at extraordinary levels are not fearless individuals. They simply develop stronger relationships with discomfort. They stop interpreting fear as a signal to stop and begin seeing it as evidence they are entering unfamiliar territory where growth becomes possible. The mind naturally resists uncertainty because uncertainty removes control. But everything meaningful in life exists beyond the boundaries of comfort. Growth, purpose, confidence, and reinvention all require temporary instability before transformation occurs. Many people remain trapped because they overestimate the cost of failure while underestimating the cost of staying the same. Remaining in the wrong environment slowly destroys confidence. Delaying important goals creates silent regret. Ignoring personal growth weakens self-belief year after year. Fear promises temporary safety, but long-term stagnation often becomes far more painful than the risks people avoid. One difficult decision today can save years of frustration tomorrow. Fear also becomes smaller through action. Neuroscience research reveals that repeated exposure to difficult situations gradually reduces emotional intensity over time. The first attempt feels terrifying. The second feels uncomfortable. Eventually, the mind adapts. This is why disciplined action matters more than endless overthinking. Most fears become exaggerated inside the imagination. Action forces reality to replace assumptions. The person afraid of rejection often discovers rejection is survivable. The person afraid of failure often discovers failure contains lessons that strengthen future success. Movement creates evidence that fear was never as powerful as it appeared. Building a future bigger than fear also requires vision. Human beings can endure discomfort when they believe something meaningful exists on the other side of it. People who lack purpose often surrender to fear quickly because they have nothing emotionally powerful pulling them forward. But when someone develops a strong vision for who they want to become, fear loses influence. Purpose creates endurance. Vision creates momentum. A meaningful future becomes stronger than temporary emotional discomfort. There will always be reasons to wait. The timing will never feel perfect. Uncertainty will always exist. Critics will always appear. Fear will always attempt to protect you from discomfort by convincing you to remain small. But powerful lives are never built through avoidance. They are built through repeated acts of courage, performed before certainty arrives. At some point, every person faces a defining choice. Continue protecting the version of yourself built around fear, or begin building a future that demands growth. One path leads toward temporary comfort and long-term regret. The other leads toward uncertainty, challenge, and transformation. The people who reinvent themselves are not special because fear disappears for them. They become powerful because they stop allowing fear to control the direction of their lives. The future changes when vision becomes louder than doubt, when purpose becomes stronger than hesitation, when action becomes more important than perfection, and eventually the life that once seemed impossible becomes reality because you finally decided that your potential mattered more than your fear.